Next thing we know, she wakes up in a bunker, and it gets worse. Hi, welcome to Gracie Talks. My name's Gracie. We're talking about 10 Cloverfield Lane today. I have done a video on Cloverfield. You can either go watch that one first or not. It's going to be really confusing no matter where you start. I'm going to give you some background for the Cloverfield universe as it pertains to this film. We're going to talk about the film, and then finally we're going to do survival tips at the end. Let's do it. This is the only information that I will repeat from the last video. Don't get annoyed with me. It's just going to be easier this way. Very quickly, Cloverfield universe. We have movie Cloverfield, which came out in 2008. That was about a giant monster attacking New York. Monster. 2016, 10 Cloverfield Lane came out, and then 2018, the Cloverfield Paradox came out. All of these films are part of the same universe. They all tell different stories. They all seem like different genres, but they are still connected, and there are some main through lines. For Cloverfield, we talked about where did the creature come from and what the company Tagruato has to do with this universe. For 10 Cloverfield Lane, it's the same thing. There is so much background lore that is never discussed on screen, but there are all of these breadcrumbs if you do the research, so that's what we're going to talk about. This movie was not originally written to be part of the Cloverfield universe. John Campbell and Matt Stuecken were the original writers of the script. It was called The Cellar. It ended up going to shortlist for films that were going to be snapped up by Hollywood. It was originally supposed to be a micro-budget film. That makes sense because almost the entire movie takes place in a cellar. There are only 3 characters that you see on screen that talk. These are sort of classic micro-budget things. We are going to have to talk about production details. I promise that I will make this as quick and painless as possible. If you stay with me, tasty little treat, you know the drill. The production side of this. Paramount bought the script in 2012. It was supposed to be developed under Insurge, which is their specialty label for micro-budget film. So it's not big enough to be a Paramount film. You throw it under the specialty label called Insurge. Bad Robot Productions, which is J.J. Abrams' production company, gets involved, and they are going to be producing it within this label. The script gets rewritten. It gets reworked to be part of this Cloverfield universe. Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who plays the leading actress in this movie, has gone on record saying that the changes were very small. We'll have to believe her. I guess we'll never really know. I have always wondered how the original writers felt about this, because I think that this movie is so good. And if it had been released in the indie circuit, how do I say this? We always try to speak with respect about everything that we talk about on this channel. I'm not here to tear things or people down. I'm not qualified to do that. And also it's not fun. I want to celebrate everybody who came together and worked on a movie. They made something incredible, and let's celebrate that. How do I put this into words? I feel like if it had gone through the indie circuit, there is a chance that it would have been more respected because it was an underdog. Does that make sense? But then you get lens flare space-time continuum enthusiast J.J. Abrams involved with his, spoiler alert, car flips, aliens, explosions, and it makes you a different type of film. Still good. The film was good. The bones of it were excellent. The acting was amazing. I was just always curious if the writers were a little bit bummed that it ended up morphing into that, or maybe they're just rolling and kicking their heels in piles of money. I don't know. I've just been curious about it. This was just really interesting to me. It was filmed in 2014 because it was part of this Cloverfield universe. It was kept really under wraps. There's a lot of secrecy involved with that. So it's supposed to be put out under this Insurge label, which sort of ended up keeping it hidden within Paramount projects. It gets filmed in 2014. By the year 2015, Insurge, the specialty label for Paramount, completely disappears. I think it got sucked back into the Paramount company. They said they retained people in terms of the job and employment. I'm not coming for Paramount. I'm more so just saying the specialty label completely disappeared. The only film that was left on its docket yet to be released was a film called Valencia. Valencia was the code name for 10 Cloverfield Lane. I just love the amount of subterfuge that was involved in the production of this movie. 2 shout outs to Dan Trachtenberg. He was a director. It was his directorial debut. Well done, Dan. Second, Bear McCreary did the music. I love Bear McCreary. He did Walking Dead, Lord of the Rings, the TV show, not the movies, but still, big Bear fan over here. We have one last thing to go over before we get into the context of the film. And I have to say, if you have never watched my videos all the way through before, it's all good. You have to watch this one all the way through, because the biggest piece of the lore that we're going to get into, I'm not going to tell you until we get to that part in the movie, because I think that it's way more fun that way. So there's one big piece of lore that is coming as we go through the plot summary. Stick around for that. Before we get into the plot summary, this is the last thing that we're going to talk about. What do we already know about the Cloverfield universe? There's a company named Tagruato. It's a Japanese deep sea mining exploration company. Turns out they're involved in a lot of other things. That's going to come into play with 10 Cloverfield Lane. The main lore with the movie Cloverfield was, where did the Cloverfield monster, I use monster, he's not a monster, where did the Cloverfield monster come from? Was it an alien or an ancient amphibious sea creature? Regardless of how the monster came to be, it was basically Tagruato's fault that the monster ended up destroying Manhattan. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go watch the video. Too much to cover, you gotta keep up. I had maintained that the Cloverfield monster came from the ocean because J.J. Abrams had said that the Cloverfield monster was not an alien. So my theory was that Tagruato with their deep sea mining was involved in waking the Cloverfield monster up, but that the monster was not alien in origin. I promise this is relevant for what we're about to talk about very quickly. Drew Goddard wrote that movie, Matt Reeves directed it, J.J. Abrams produced it. In my mind, J.J. Abrams was the only person who had a hand in the creation of all 3 of these movies. He produced all of them, and it was his idea initially, because Matt Reeves had said that the monster was alien, so I'm thinking, okay, we're gonna go with J. on this. Apparently, all three of those men, Matt Reeves, Drew Goddard, and J.J. Abrams, produced all three of these movies, meaning they were involved in all of them. And aliens definitely exist in 10 Cloverfield Lane. This is what we're about to get into. And I'm feeling like the Cloverfield monster actually might have been alien in origin. Before you come at me, as we do research, the board shifts, things evolve, and I'm a smart enough person to be open to being wrong. I'm going through the research and digging through this just like you. Let's get into it. 10 Cloverfield Lane. This is not the big special lore dump that I'm going to give you, just the background lore for it. It is ultimately a movie where an alien invasion is taking place. The zoom out version, the main character Michelle wakes up in a basement after a car accident. She is being kept against her will by a man who is exhibiting violent and abusive symptoms. He's telling her there's an alien invasion. She does not know if this man is simply unwell or if there is actually an alien invasion and she can't figure out what's going on. The bulk of the movie is going to take place in this underground farm bunker, and it feels very much like a psychological thriller as you watch it. There are creepy things going on, there's mystery, but it is her goal to get out of the bunker. Spoiler alert, eventually she does. There is an alien invasion going on. It's a mystery thriller movie saying, hey, don't look over here, and hiding an alien invasion in a trench coat in the corner. Which leads me to the Cloverfield universe lore that we have to talk about. Aliens do exist in the Cloverfield universe. How? The alien origins in the Cloverfield universe are supposed to be that in the 2018 movie, The Cloverfield Paradox, that takes place in the year 2028, there's a war, a team of scientists is trying to create unlimited energy. They use a large hadron collider in space, and it ends up opening a tear in the fabric of the universe. You see aliens sort of coming through as they're traveling through these different worlds. This is the J.J. Abrams can't get enough of a space-time continuum issue, but all love and respect to J.J. When that happens at the end of the movie, you do see Clover sort of flying through, which implied that he was an alien. I, however, thought that it was just going to be their alternate realities now, and whatever reality we're living in now. Clover didn't end up dying after the events of 2008. The issue is that Matt Reeves was the one who said that this proved that Clover was an alien. This is how aliens opened up in our world. Hey, stay with me. Even though there are different realities now, all three of these movies are taking place in one timeline, and all of these events are occurring because of these events in the Cloverfield Paradox, where aliens now exist and came through. All of these things that are taking place, the 2008 movie Cloverfield, 2016 movie 10 Cloverfield Lane, and the 2018 movie The Cloverfield Paradox, those are all taking place in the same timeline. It is all because aliens exist, and they all exist because of what ends up happening in the Cloverfield Paradox. That is the bow that was tied on the Cloverfield universe. How do you explain that with the comments that J.J. Abrams made? I think what happened is that when they started this project out, they probably had different ideas for what they wanted it to be. One thing that everybody agrees on is that the Cloverfield monster is a baby throwing a fit, having a tantrum. It is not Clover's fault what Clover is doing. We failed Clover. That's my own belief. There was never supposed to be a firm answer on what actually is going on. And then I think as things progressed, you write more scripts, you do more movies, you end up sort of having to flesh some of this stuff out that maybe was never meant to be fleshed out. So I think that ultimately maybe they disagreed, and then they ended up going with this one way where it does mean that Clover is an alien. I don't think that that was the plan all along. And frankly, I don't really care what they tell me the ultimate answer is to make it black and white. I said this with the last video, the entire point with the Cloverfield universe. I like that it's a narrative playground. You get to choose what you think is going on because there is so much there. And you get to do this with this universe way more than you get to do it with other movies because there is so much background lore and Easter eggs. There are things that we talk about when I talk about the big lore reveal in this movie. There are so many little Easter eggs and pieces of evidence that if you're paying attention and pick up on them, it's so much fun to play around in that, and there can still be different theories. But for the purposes of 10 Cloverfield Lane and moving on, I do have to say it's looking like Clover was an alien, especially because one of the aliens that attacks Michelle at the very end makes a sound very similar to Clover. So similar, incredibly similar, and I think that we are supposed to believe that actually Clover was an alien. Was I wrong for my assumption? No. I trusted JJ. JJ, call me. I know you watch, I know you're a fan. Give me a call. I'm just saying multiple things can be right, and I think that this was something where they put a lid on it after the fact. Whatever, don't pee on me and tell me it's raining. But for the purposes of the nice tidy, it was aliens all along, sure, Clover was an alien, whatever. 10 Cloverfield Lane, we are dealing with an alien invasion. We're gonna go through the plot now. The tasty treat is still coming. I'm gonna give it to you after we get to the big lore reveal. Plot summary, the movie takes place in March 2016 in Louisiana. Michelle has a fight with her fiance. She ends up packing up her entire apartment, hits the road. The cursory glances around her apartment shows that she has a background with fashion design, sewing clothes. She stops at a gas station. She is creeped up by a guy at the gas station. There was also a Sluice Show sign. Love a Sluice Show tie-in. Jade, you've done it again. There are reports of blackouts, strange things going on over the radio. She gets a call from Ben. She's ignoring it. She answers it, but she doesn't say anything. Actually kind of an iconic move. Really not nice, but kind of like that girl move, you know? I don't know what the fight was about, but obviously I'm going to be on Michelle's side. She keeps getting calls from him. She reaches over to do something, probably just ignore the call again because she's an unbothered queen. Her car gets hit. She's run off the road, car accident. Next thing we know, she wakes up in a bunker and it gets worse. There's an old-fashioned brace on her knee, which is chained to the wall, and a rudimentary IV stand that she is hooked up to. She immediately tries to escape, and since we only have so much time, I cannot break down the genius of Michelle or the genius of every single escape attempt. simply not enough time. She crushes. You know that there is not a final girl in the world that I do not love and have admiration for. I am simply saying that as a protagonist, Michelle has to have one of the highest escape attempt counts. And there are different things that go into this. So I'm not comparing final girls. All of them are wonderful and beautiful in their own way. In terms of escape attempt stats, it's gotta be Michelle at the top. She just keeps going. And several of them, by the way, she would have actually escaped had she not chosen to then stay where she was because she was being told that she couldn't go outside. We're gonna get into that. She is chained to the wall. She does get a hold of her phone. She uses that IV stand. There is no service because she's in a concrete bunker, which reminds me really quickly, if you were ever in an emergency and your phone says no service, you can still call 911. There are emergency protocols in place that if you make that call, it'll ping off of any available tower to make sure that you get help. Don't let no service stop you. In Michelle's case, however, ultimately not going to work. It's a concrete bunker. The call simply cannot make it out of there. Now we meet Howard. I'm not going to walk through this movie step by step. We're just sort of going to talk about the big things as they go through so that we can get to this big lore reveal. Howard in general, I would pee myself if I was ever in a room with this man. That's how creeped out he made me. John Goodman does an incredible job. So does Mary Elizabeth Winstead. The top level version of this is that what's actually going on is Howard is a very paranoid man, a conspiracy theorist. We know he was in the Navy and he's an incredibly capable man. He has built this bunker prepping that there would be a situation like this. He is very smart. He's very resourceful. He knows how to survive in this world. There is definitely a very real skill and talent to what he is doing. But something is also very wrong. We end up finding that he had a family, a wife and a daughter. The wife took the daughter and moved to Chicago because Howard was so paranoid. It started when he was trying to build a bunker for Y2K. And if you think that's fascinating, that's just the beginning. That's just a speck of dust on the top of the lid that I will remove when we get to the big lore reveal. The creep factor for me comes from the fact that he is incredibly volatile. You have no idea how his mood is going to fall with every sentence that falls out of his mouth. It just changes all the time. So he meets Michelle, says, hey, I found you on the side of the road. You were injured. There was an attack. Everything that you know about the outside world is gone. Your fiance and your family dead. The entire world is gone. Nobody could have survived it. You cannot walk around outside. The air is dangerous. He says that it doesn't know if it was nuclear or chemical, and then doesn't know if it was the Russians or the Martians. At this point, when Michelle is taking this in, she is trying to parse out, is there any way what this man is saying is true, or is he actually crazy? It seemed like there was part of her that was saying, okay, you seem to know what you're talking about, and then he says Martians, and she goes, okay. All right, I'm gonna leave. Thank you for your generosity. He tells her that they are underneath his farmhouse in this doomsday bunker that he has prepped for exactly the situation. They are about 40 miles outside of Lake Charles. This is in Louisiana. Michelle says, hey dude, I was nowhere near Lake Charles when I was driving. What do you mean you found me on the side of the road and took me home? We don't get a firm answer on this. In fact, this is when we see one of Howard's first switches. So he starts trying to tell her, I saved your life. I'm going to take care of you. You have injuries. I'm going to make sure that you get better. And it really seems like Howard believes what he's saying and that he's very sincere. And then when she does not immediately sort of kiss his feet and say, thank you very much, even just questioning him and saying, hold on, what's going on? Because the last thing she knew, the world was normal. Even just questioning it, he yells at her and says that she needs to be more grateful and show him some respect. And this becomes a very big theme. He is looking for the people around him to show him a level of gratitude that is impossible and to respect him. He needs to feel respected by them. Something is very wrong. My girl stays trying to escape. Not time to cover all of them. We'll talk about one of them in a second. She is allowed to walk around the bunker now. Basically, Howard would easily be able to overpower her, and he really wants Michelle to be there willingly, even though she's not and she's trying to escape the whole time. So he gives her all of these freedoms, and I think it makes him feel like, hey, we're in this together. So she's walking around exploring the bunker, actually a pretty solid place in terms of all of the technology and what they have accessible to them without using any outside air, because their belief, Howard and Emmett's, is that the outside air is contaminated. Pretty sweet setup that he's got here. Emmett's story real quick. Emmett is the contractor that helped Howard build the bunker, and so when he first saw the attack, he immediately ran to the bunker. Howard was getting there with an unconscious Michelle. Emmett talks his way inside, and then Howard begrudgingly lets him in and closes the door. That will be important later. So as you're watching this, if you don't know that it's related to the Cloverfield universe, the majority of your attention when watching this film is Howard telling the truth? Is there something wrong outside? Was there a massive attack? Or have I been kidnapped? This man is not mentally stable and he's dangerous. I think if you didn't know that it was part of the Cloverfield universe, you would just assume that Howard was unwell and that he's dangerous and that the outside world is completely fine. At the time that I saw this movie, I didn't know that it was part of the Cloverfield universe, and that was my assumption. So the brilliance of this film comes in moments where Michelle finds Emmett. She thinks, hooray, I have another captive here that I can band up with so that we can somehow one-up Howard and get out of the secret bunker. But Emmett believes very strongly that there is something wrong with the outside world. And he says, I saw the attack. Easy there, Emmett. Do you know for a fact that the air is uninhabitable? Which is what Howard is saying. No. You don't know that. All he saw was the flash of red, the beginnings of an attack. He knew that Howard was talking about this. He freaks out, so he goes to the bunker. In terms of evidence that Howard is telling the truth, that was simply not meaningful to me. Did not move the scales enough for me. Emmett simply just didn't see enough. He just agreed that something happened, sure, but you mean to tell me that everything's destroyed and the air is uninhabitable? That's a lot. Michelle still does not believe this. Howard stands there with dead eyes and says, I think it's time you meet Frank and Mildred. And it made me pee. It was chilling. And he takes her to the only exit hatch that we've seen. There is a double lock mechanism. So there's one door that you lock, go out to, and then another door. Also a good contamination unit if you do believe that the air is uninhabitable. Frank and Mildred are pigs. They are dead. They're outside. Their corpses look not great. Not going to show you a picture. Howard points to the pigs. See, look, the air did that to them. It dissolved their skin. I don't know. It was gross. Michelle still does not believe them. We get information that a girl named Megan used to live in the bunker. And believe me, we will be circling back to that. At this point, we have the three of them living in a very tense dynamic. Michelle is pretending to go along with it. She does not believe it. Emmett is just happy to be there, that he's avoided death, but he also has to consistently walk on glass every time that he talks to Howard. Howard doesn't seem to like Emmett at all. Howard does seem to like Michelle. It doesn't seem like it's romantic, but it is really, really creepy. I'm not really qualified to talk about exactly what would be going on within his mind. He does not make romantic advances towards her, but he definitely acts like he has some sort of ownership over her. At the very least, he is emotionally tied to her, where her perception of him is really important to him. And he wants to sway that, and he is constantly getting annoyed with the fact that he has to share her attentions with Emmett. Michelle and Emmett end up sort of existing around him, trying to just not make any sudden moves. Hey, what are we going to do? Michelle still doesn't believe what's going on. And we have a new piece of information. When Michelle was at the door to the bunker and could see outside, even though she couldn't open the door because there's a set of keys that only Howard has, she saw Howard's truck and recognized it as a truck that had ran her off the road. And she also sees scrapes of red along the side. Her car was red and obviously very damaged from the accident. At this point, Michelle is thinking, I have got Howard's ass. I've got his ass. I know that he's up to something malicious because he was the one who hit me. Then out of the blue, Howard confesses to her. He says, hey, just so you know, I've been feeling really guilty about it. I was the one who hit you. I saw the attack. I was panicking. I was driving home too fast, but I immediately went to help you, brought you back to the bunker. You would have died anyway if you had been out there. So really, I still did you a favor, but regardless, I just wanted to let you know because it's been eating me alive. Howard obviously clocked that she saw the truck and was going to be smart enough to put it together. This is why he confesses it. She still does not believe that Howard is on her side, that Howard is telling the truth about the outside. Smart girl. They are doing a creepy cursed family dinner when Michelle uses the fact that Howard does not like her and Emmett interacting. She keeps getting Emmett to pass her stuff and making sure that their hands touch. Emmett is not really directly flirting with her. Howard doesn't care. He freaks out, corners her, towers over her. There were a lot of scenes that would be very triggering from a DV perspective in this movie. This was one of them. To be clear, in terms of what's the dynamic with him and Michelle, what does he want from her? All he says here is, do you think that I'm stupid? I saw what you were doing. You need to stop doing that. You need to respect me. Okay. Good time to mention, as always, there are resources and charities in my bio. There are heavy things in most of the stuff that we talk about at this point. While Howard was cementing his spot as a star of my nightmares for the next decade, Michelle ends up stealing his keys, cracks a bottle over his head, goes to the door of the bunker. She gets through the first one. She is the only one with the keys now, locks it. So Howard is on one side of the bunker door, and then she is on the other side that now only has that one door directly in between her and the outside. So Howard is on one side, he can't get to her, but she can still be at the door, make a decision to go or leave. He's telling her that she can't leave. She has the keys, she is going to. Michelle stays winning, that's a fact. Just as she is going to, a woman comes along. This woman is messed up, probably not going to show pictures of this either. Her skin is deteriorating, something is very clearly wrong with her. And she's saying things like, it barely touched me, I feel fine, really I'm fine, please just let me in. At this point, Michelle starts to believe that Howard might have been telling the truth the entire time. Maybe something really is wrong with the outside, and maybe the air actually is contaminated because this woman seems to really not be okay standing outside, and all she wants to do is to get inside. Michelle doesn't take that chance, so she goes back into the bunker, gives Howard the keys. We now get this middle section of this film that is supposed to lull you into a false sense of security, where all three of them now believe that this threat outside is very real. They are lucky to be alive, and they're going to make it work all at the bunker together. And there's this montage of them doing board games together and cooking dinners. Howard is still volatile, but they're managing to not push as many of his triggers, especially since Michelle is no longer just pretending to believe him. She actually does. Maybe there are still things that she questions, but overall she believes that there is a threat outside and she's lucky to be in that bunker. He can feel that, so he's also sort of being on best behavior. We get some of his backstory here. He had a daughter named Megan. This is the Megan that had been in the bunker before. Megan loves Paris, Megan loves to cook, and Megan's mother, Howard's wife, turned Megan against Howard and took her to Chicago. He's saying that all he wanted to do was save her. I need you to be clocking all of this. And if not, I guess that's what I'm here for, so don't worry about it. There's an issue with the ventilation system, and now this nightmare blunt rotation, don't smoke kids, has to work together to solve it. They've been working together for pretty much everything at this point. They send Michelle up through the vents. She's the only one small enough to fit. And there's a place that she can crawl to through the vents. This ventilation system is set up, and it's also big enough that once you get there, it is a full room that you can walk around in. And there's another hatch to the be outside there. There's a letter on the ground in this room addressed to Howard from Bold Futura. There is a bloody earring on the ground, and then when Michelle looks up at that hatch, she sees that the word help has been scratched into the window with a nail that went bloody by the end of the time that they were writing it. Michelle fixes the filtration system. I think I've been switching between ventilation and filtration. I'm so sorry. I'm not an expert in underground bunkers. I know it seems like I would be. She fixes the filtration system. She goes back down through the vents. She keeps everything to herself. She does link up with Emmett separately, and she is back on team Howard is actually bullshit. Michelle shows Emmett the photo of Megan that Howard had showed her. Howard told her about his daughter Megan, showed her a photo of Megan. Megan had earrings on, and those earrings were the bloody ones that Michelle found up in that other room. She explains this to Emmett and says, I think Howard did something to Megan, to his daughter. And then Emmett says, what are you talking about? That's not Megan. Emmett says that photo is of a girl named Brittany who went missing 2 years ago. He knows this because his younger sister went to high school with her. They then find another picture of Howard with Brittany, missing teen, very much not his daughter, sitting on the couch with his arms around her. And she's wearing the Paris shirt that we believe did belong to real Megan, Howard's daughter, that Howard has also put Michelle in. This is where the movie is a little bit of a hat on a hat, which typically is a negative thing. I don't even mean it as a negative thing here. The theory is that Howard's wife did take Megan and move to Chicago. At that point, Howard kidnapped Brittany so that he could still feel like he had his daughter there with him, made her pretend to be Megan, dressed her up like Megan, and then eventually when she kept trying to escape or wouldn't play along, he killed her. It's not looking good for Michelle. There's a larger theory here that Howard was the man at the gas station when Michelle first was creeped out by a man at the gas station. I watched that scene over and over again. That car didn't look like the truck to me. However, the build of the man inside did look like it could have been Howard, so I'm not really sure about that. One thing that I do believe is that Howard intentionally took Michelle with the plan of, I'm going to have Michelle pretend to be Megan for me. Didn't want Emmett there. Emmett was never supposed to be there, only wanted it to be him and Michelle. He sees the attack coming. He knows that he doesn't have a make-pretend daughter at the bunker. He sees Michelle, purposefully crashes into her. On the one hand, very bad for Michelle. On the other hand, he's probably not going to run the risk of killing her again because he has no way to procure another make-pretend daughter. It is time for the big lore reveal. I am so excited. And it has to do with Howard. So we know that he's a conspiracy theorist. We know that the whole time through the movie, we're not sure if he's telling the truth or not about the outside world. And we're also not sure what his deal is. At this point, we understand that Howard is dangerous and that there is probably something deeply wrong with him. We are still not sure about the outside world yet. But in terms of Howard's deal, this is where the ARG answered some questions for us. Everyone say thank you to the ARG. This is the alternate reality game. Does everybody remember the ARG? There were websites, social medias, all of this stuff set up for characters and plot points in the movie Cloverfield. There was a website for Tagruato, and that's where you ended up getting some background on what was actually happening in the film. The ARG comes back into play for this movie. This would have been everything to me as a fan if I was as locked in as I was now to all of a sudden see that things were happening with the ARG again. I'm gonna get into it. Howard was in the Navy for 14 years, worked on satellites. There was a mission called CSAT. They were tracking Soviet spies. Howard and his colleague ended up seeing something that they were not supposed to see. Very big secret. We still don't know what it is, to my knowledge. They were told to keep quiet about it. Howard's colleague did not, was sent to prison for the rest of his life. Howard leaves the Navy, does keep his mouth shut about what he saw, but never stops looking for it. He marries a woman named Denise. They have a daughter named Megan, but Howard is very paranoid. He's working on a Y2K bunker. This is when Denise takes Megan and they move to Chicago. Through my investigations, I believe that there is a restraining order out on him for violent tendencies, but I cannot verify that for sure. Now, this is all stuff that is pretty much still covered in the movie, but you want to know what's not covered in the movie? The website for Tagruato. Updates. Keep in mind, everything with the ARG, these websites, some of them were taken down, I think the MySpace pages, and then the Tagruato website was still sitting there, but obviously hadn't had any updates. All of a sudden, this movie comes out, there's an update to it. They make a post celebrating Employees of the Month for February 2016. Howard is on it. If you were one of the people that saw this when it was actually happening, can you just explain to me what the euphoria was like? I hate that I missed it. Anyway, it's so genius. The letter that Michelle saw that was addressed to Howard from Bold Futura. Bold Futura is a subsidiary of Tagruato. Bold Futura specifically is a contractor for advanced technology products for the military as well as an arms manufacturer, and Howard is directly involved with it. We know that Howard started working with them in 2009, presumably because he wanted to continue his research on whatever he had found out about in the Navy. And in terms of the Cloverfield universe, we're thinking, is it aliens? Did he see aliens and now he has to pretend not to? He's still looking for them. He gets involved with Tagruato. Maybe Tagruato is working on something with aliens. There's also a theory that after the events of Cloverfield would have taken place in this universe, that Howard says, hey, the government's keeping something from us. What is it? And starts trying to do more research as well. And maybe that led him to Tagruato. In Howard's Employee of the Month photo, he's wearing a shirt that says Radio Man 70 on it. This referenced his career in the Navy. The people that worked on satellites in communications for the Navy were called radio men. We're not going to get into the sexism thing. Not enough time. 1970 was presumably one of the years that he served during the Vietnam War. If you go to radioman70.com, the website, you can't do it anymore, but at the time, it would redirect you to a website with the handle funandprettythings.com, which within the Cloverfield lore was a website that Howard made as a secret way to still communicate with Megan when she was in Chicago. Once you get to that site, Fun and Pretty Things, there was a screenshot from the movie Pretty in Pink, which the movie directly says was one of Megan's favorite films. I remember seeing that scene and going, that's a really specific detail they put in there because it all matters. If you click on that screenshot from Pretty in Pink, it asks for a password. The screenshot from that moment in Pretty in Pink, the dialogue at the time says, do you want to talk? If you were to put that in for the password, it would take you to the chat screens between Howard and his daughter, Megan. Howard set this site up to talk to Megan. Their usernames were RadioMan70 and Radio Girl. There are a lot of messages here. We're not going to get into them. This was the big lore reveal that I wanted to talk about. The Tagruato through line, the website being updated with Howard's picture, learning that there's more of this conspiracy with Tagruato, what's going on, and then the websites and all of the back. Tasty treat. And we'll get to the tasty treat that I'm going to give you for sticking it through the lore in just one second. Real quick to wrap this up, a lot of messages here. I'm not going to go through all of them. Basically, it's just more family background. Howard's wife doesn't want him anywhere near her or Megan. Howard keeps trying to warn Megan about the attack that would have happened in March 2016, the attack that's going on when this movie is happening, which means that he must have known. So whatever Tagruato is doing, again, I think involved. He also sent her links to articles on how to survive, helpful survival guides, stuff like that. He's encroaching on my territory, if you will. And if you went to those websites, there were simulators and things that you could play. This goes back to the game aspect of the ARG. One other person appears in this chats with the initials NL. That is believed to be Niccolo Razzo, but at this point, we are 10 layers deeper than we need to be. So we're gonna bring it back up to the top. The tasty treat, I just got back from vacation. That's why this video is late. I'm sorry about it. I actually ended up cutting off just the top part of my left pinky toe. Gone. Clean off. Maybe I'll tell a story someday. Maybe I won't. It's raw. It's fresh at this point. Sorry I don't have a picture for you, but you are not getting that missing left pinky toe photo. You're not getting it. Stop asking. Thank you so much for sticking with me through the lore on this. I hope that it was as fulfilling for you as it was for me. I just think this stuff is so fascinating and it's so well done. It's such a shame that I don't think more people talk about it. Anyway, we're gonna finish up the movie real quick and then we're gonna do survival thoughts. Back into the movie. We have Howard's lore, but don't forget, we still don't know what is ultimately going on outside of the bunker. We're almost there. This is going to be the third and final act of the film. Michelle and Emmett both agree now that Howard is bad and scary, but they also think that something is really wrong with the outside and you can't just go outside. So they're trying to figure out, how do we find a way to get outside and not immediately die? And how do we even get past Howard to do that? The plan is Michelle, with her background in fashion design and seamstressing, is that a word? She's going to design an actual hazmat suit that would stand up and really work in real life. Is this believable? Yes, because she's crafty, and also because they end up using books that Howard has because he's such a survivalist. He has so many resources and information that they can read on for how to do this. I do kind of buy it. They use a shower curtain for the base of the suit, and then they're using recyclable bottles to make the mask part of it. There are only enough supplies for one person, so the plan is that Michelle and Emmett are going to somehow get Howard's gun, subdue him, chain him up in that cellar area. You can threaten him with the gun if you have to, and then the other person is going to wear the suit to go get help. They are working on this in secret. They are still pretending to be Team Howard. This all sort of sets the foundation for the next scene. It is game night. Emmett pulls the card Little Women. The game is that you're trying to get other people to guess it. He gets Howard to guess little, and then he's trying to get Howard to guess women. So he says Michelle is a, to get Howard to fill in the blank. And when Howard starts filling in the blank for Michelle is a blank, he guesses girl, child, and pretty little princess. Let me go home. This is her face, by the way, and girl, same. Just had to touch on that real quick. Really creeped me out. We are almost at the end now. Howard ends up catching them stealing supplies. Emmett takes the fall for it, says that he was stealing supplies to make a weapon so that he could steal Howard's gun from him because Michelle respects Howard and not Emmett. And Emmett wants Michelle to respect him like she respects Howard. He's clearly playing towards that side of Howard. Howard says, I accept your apology. But then Howard pulls out his gun and shoots Emmett point blank and then goes to comfort Michelle and is sort of grabbing her and holding her and saying, it's just us now, the way it was always supposed to be. No. At this point, we have a suit. We do not have keys to get out. We do not have a way to subdue Howard. And Michelle has again tried so many escape attempts. Not recently in the movie. This was more so at the beginning, but we do know that she's gone up against Howard so many times and he is just simply so much bigger than her. She can't overpower him. So it's sort of at this stalemate. What's Michelle gonna do? Howard ends up finding the suit, so then they get pushed into this confrontation even though she didn't have a real plan. Howard has a bucket of acid that he uses to dispose of things because it breaks everything down so quickly, including human flesh and bone. And that's how he ends up getting rid of stuff in the bunker. It makes sense from a survivalist standpoint. Michelle ends up pouring the bucket of acid on him and makes it outside with her suit on. Yes, Michelle. At this point, she gets outside. We're finally gonna find out what's going on. She gets outside, she says, it seems fine. She sees other things moving around, creatures, not people, moving around, and she takes her mask off to see if she can breathe without it. She can't. She's completely fine. Bit of a big gamble because I guess you wouldn't know if the air was going to contaminate you right away or take its time, but she takes that mask off and seems to believe, okay, I guess we're fine. At this point as the audience, you start thinking Howard was lying about everything. Oh my God, everything's actually completely fine until the aliens come. This is when we actually realize what's going on. There are aliens that have invaded Earth and are attacking. There is a gas that they release while they are attacking. They end up using the gas and Michelle is able to put the mask back on, duct tape any points where she had removed it. She gets into her car and then the aliens try to take her up, lifting the entire car, sort of taking her up into the sky. She throws a Molotov cocktail. She's able to get away. She gets in the car. Her radio is still working and she hears a radio transmission that is talking about the alien invasion. I'm going to touch on that in 1 second, but that is ultimately what is going on. The air was fine for them to walk around in, but not if you were in a place where the aliens were sending out the gas. So that part was touch and go. So Howard wasn't exactly right about everything, but the main bones of it, yeah, there was an alien invasion and it's dangerous to be outside, but not everybody is dead. There are groups of survivors out there. There are groups of fighters out there. And going back to what the radio transmission is saying, they're saying that there are a group of survivors in Baton Rouge. If you need a safe space to go, they are fighting battles and winning some cities over, keeping the aliens away. And they're saying, if you are willing and able to fight, come to Houston. We need people to join this fight with us. And Michelle turns that car, U-turn. Signed Baton Rouge here, Houston here, baby goes to Houston. She is going to go fight on the front lines. As she's driving away, you see a large alien ship in the sky, much like the recent drone activity that we don't even have time to get into. I stayed mostly off the grid for the entire vacation. Imagine my shock having worked on this video, knowing that I was gonna film. I got back this morning at like 1 a.m. Plane lands, phone on, drones that look just like this. Yo, that was so scary. And that is it, that is the movie. We're gonna do overall thoughts now, and I'm gonna keep this shorter than I typically do, and that's just because this video is going to be so much, there's so much information. Overall survival thoughts. Don't drive distracted, even though I'm not victim shaming. And then finally, for this one specifically, you're gonna have to do exactly what Michelle did. I think she played it right. Pretend to believe him, pretend to be on his side so that he doesn't kill you in a rage, but just keep working on that way out. Keep attempting those escapes. I don't see a way that you make it out of that bunker without the incredible, almost unbelievable things that Michelle was able to pull off with making the suit from a shower curtain and some scissors that they I mean, I don't know. Mainly, I guess, just play along until you can find a way out of there. Stay safe, but this one's really tough because the majority of it takes place in that cellar. There's not a lot to do if you find yourself in that situation. In terms of the bigger alien invasion, that's the one that I want to talk about. In fact, when I found out that that was what was going on, it was actually an alien invasion and this war between the humans and the aliens now, I felt like I had basically ended up watching a 2-hour prologue for the movie that I actually wanted to see. 10 Cloverfield Lane was still really good. That's the movie that I want to see. Show me the humans fighting the aliens. I get that it's a concept that's been done before. This was supposed to be cool. It was subterfuge. It's an alien invasion wearing a trench coat. I understand. Still show me that movie. I made a Ready or Not video. I asked for a sequel. Y'all started sending me the article shortly after that where it announced that they are coming out with a sequel for that movie. I would like to use that power for this one. Give me a sequel to 10 Cloverfield Lane. Show me that battle. Thank you. Finally, last thought on that. We did this for Cloverfield. We're going to do it for this one too. Creepometer. We're going to address whether or not it was creepy the way that the women in this movie, one woman, was filmed. Michelle ends up spending the beginning part of the movie in her underwear as she has been in a car accident. Howard has removed her outer clothes so that he can work on her injuries. Same thing with Cloverfield, just my opinion. If you felt differently, I completely validate that. My own opinion, I didn't feel like it was objectified or sexualized. It was simply, that's what it would have looked like for these things. And it even ended up adding a very visceral component to it, watching it, where then when Howard enters the room, she still ends up sort of throwing the covers up. It was a small thing, but it was stuff like that that made the movie very real. I'm not a movie critic, okay? I just break down this stuff for fun, but I thought that it was really well done. Overall, this movie was fantastic. The lore is fantastic. Aliens exist in this universe. The Cloverfield paradox is next. That is the most polarizing one in terms of the reception. I can't wait to talk about it with y'all. There were triggering things in this video. As always, please remember that there are charities and resources linked below. I love you. Take care of yourselves. I will see you soon. And then I actually have one last thing for this video, which I don't typically do. If you're watching this video when it comes out, it's the holiday season. And I just wanted to check in for 1 second. The holiday season can be really hard. Really, really hard. Do not laugh at me for being sincere, because I'm going to be sincere for a second. It's a really hard time of year. It's okay that it's hard. You're not alone. Even if you have people that you can spend it with, your family, chosen or otherwise, other loved ones, friends, whatever it is, even if you have people, it can still be really hard. And then if you don't have people, I wanted to say that you have me. I promise that there are people that love you and care about you. We need you to be here. You are not alone. I love you. I really don't want to do too much or be too serious, but that was just something that I really felt like I had to say. Anyway, bye.